Hey, WokeNFree Nation, Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice.
For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. Stop scrolling, start listening.
You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science to Bitcoin, or even one of your favorite celebrities. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud.
And they have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. Our podcast, WokeNFree, is there too.
Now let's get into the episode. Hi, it's Natasha.
And Khalil.
And we are the co-hosts of
WokeNFree.
Thank you for tuning in to our 239th episode of WokeNFree. If you've been tuning in every week for WokeNFree Wednesday, you know that WokeNFree is all about being real and honest with each other and you. We talk about everything and anything important to us, you, the world, and nothing is off the table. This week, we have an author spotlight with Elaine Pofeldt and her new book. So we're so excited for you to enjoy the show about the new book, Tiny Business, a Big Money. And it's going to be not only enlightening and educational if you do get a copy of the book, but also you'll really enjoy just sitting down with the author and hearing her thoughts on business and different sections of the book that we highlighted. So with that, before we go into the conversation, a couple of things to cover. Have you downloaded this episode on WokeNFree.com through the Podbean app? If you haven't, please do, because that's how you're able to put in your comments, and we really look forward to hearing from you every single WokeNFree Wednesday. Now, if for whatever reason you listen to podcasts on, you can't download another app for whatever the reason, then go to WokeNFree.com. Go on the listen tab and then pick your platform of choice where you're going to follow and subscribe to the show. So we're on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube. Yes, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, please, folks. SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, and a couple of other places that I haven't mentioned. So again, listen tab on WokeNFree.com. And also, when you're on WokeNFree.com, make sure you click subscribe to follow the show through the Podbean app for those who are catching us there. On social, you can holler on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, and LinkedIn at WokeNFree. And then if you have 90 seconds, which we are just going to assume that you do, please review the show. You can do that on going to WokeNFree.com, go in the listen tab, and then pick your place of where you want to review us, and that way we can hear what you think about the show. Elaine Pofeldt is an independent journalist who specializes in small business and entrepreneurship. She is the author of Tiny Business, Big Money, which takes a look at how seven-figure businesses with small teams are reinventing the small business landscape. She's also the author of The $1 Million One-Person Business, a guide to how solopreneurs are breaking $1 million in revenue in businesses with no employees except the owners. Her work has appeared in Fortune, Money, CNBC, Inc., Forbes, Crain's New York Business, and many other business publications. She's contributed to the Economist Intelligence Unit. She is also a ghostwriter, collaborative editor, and also as a senior editor at Fortune Small Business, where she worked for 8 years. Elaine was twice nominated for the National Magazine Award for her features and ran the magazine's annual business plan competition. Elaine graduated from Yale University with a BA in English. She lives in New Jersey with her husband and their 4 children, and in her free time loves Taekwondo, yoga, and kickboxing. And with that, I think we're going to get into the conversation.
Before we get into it, we always like to start the conversation by sharing a little bit about ourselves. And this week we're asking, would you rather have a pet chinchilla or a sugar glider?
I don't know what a sugar glider is.
Yeah, that's I didn't know either. So they're like these palm-sized possums is a good way to describe them, but they kind of look like miniature squirrels.
Oh, interesting.
I would rather have a chinchilla because I have a grudge against possums. There was a possum
really?
in my garbage can, yes, and he scared the garbage man. So the garbage company called us to tell us that there was this possum, and I bought these bungee cords. Or actually, my husband bought them to cover up the garbage can so he couldn't get in there. So one morning I came back from hot yoga and I was kind of still in the zone, and was putting the garbage out and pulled the bungee cord back, and it snapped and hit me and cracked my front tooth. This was recently.
Oh,
so
my
I had
God.
to get tooth repair. So I hope that possum doesn't come back. That's all I'll say.
Oh my gosh, that's so horrible. I'm so sorry.
Ouch.
Oh, thank you. It was just one of those crazy freak accidents that you'd never expect to happen, but it did. Luckily, my dentist does good work.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, well, I agree with you. I think possums, every time I've seen them on the road, they're kind of terrifying. So I think I'll go with chinchilla.
Okay.
And he played possum too. That's what I didn't know, but the garbage company told me he pretended to be sleeping and popped up and scared the garbage man. So they're kind of sneaky too.
Oh, wow. That's super creepy, actually. Oh my gosh.
So they actually do that then in actual life. Because I heard of the term play possum, like play dead, but they actually really do it. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm more of a city girl.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, the chinchillas, they're like nice and small, but I don't know. The sugar gliders seem kind of, so I would go with the sugar glider just because they're like different. So that'd be my answer.
Gotcha. Okay. And with that, I think with all of that fun, we have even more fun to have. I know KJ is in the background listening. So just in case you hear a little baby, we haven't lost our mind. That's our guest appearance that always is here. So with that, Elaine, we're so excited to have you join the show. And I guess the first question that we're really excited to ask you is, please share what ignited your passion for business and specifically wanting to write about successful entrepreneurs.
I want to hug him. He sounds so cute. I have 4 children myself. So.
Thank you.
Well, tiny business, big money came out of something that I noticed when I wrote my first book, The $1 Million One-Person Business, which was that a lot of these businesses eventually hire people, and yet they didn't want to do it the traditional way because these are folks that like their freedom, they like their lifestyle, and they were wondering, is there a different way? And I thought, well, what if I interview people who are a few steps beyond them and see what they're doing? And they were doing interesting things. One entrepreneur, Brian Dean, runs Backlinko. He actually just sold it to SEM Rush, but at the time I interviewed him, he was still running it. And he was running the whole company on a tech app called Notion. And I thought, well, you know what? That expanded my mind a little bit because I thought you had to have meetings, and you really apparently don't. He has a very successful business. And my passion for small business, I don't really know where it came from. You know how some things sort of creep up on you and then you wind up spending your life on them? It was kind of like that. I worked at, I was a reporter in Jersey City and Patterson. I was a general assignment reporter early in my career, I covered City Hall in Jersey City. I would do, various things when other people were out, like going to the police station and checking the police blotter and that kind of thing. And then I kind of burned out on always breaking bad news. And I took a job at Women's Wear Daily, where I was a fashion editor. It was the complete opposite of what I had been doing before. And that was fun, but it was a little too light and fluffy for me. So I wanted something in between. And I enjoyed learning about the businesses of the fashion designers. And I was actually quite surprised that I found it interesting, but I did. I found it really interesting. And then I took a job after that at Success Magazine, which writes about entrepreneurship. And then that led to Fortune Small Business. And I found it, I just somehow really related to the entrepreneurs. They're very free in terms of how they look at life. And I guess this is the perfect podcast, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And I just enjoyed them. And it just kept me going all these years.
Love it. Thank you. That makes sense. And yeah, it is interesting how in your career you kind of stumble upon things, but then you really enjoy it and you start going with it. And we really enjoy, and like your passion showed through in the book. So that's why we're really excited to hear that. So I think Khalil.
Well, yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. I really am passionate about it, but sometimes you don't even know why, right?
Exactly.
That's true.
It's one of those things, it just kind of finds you and then you're hooked.
Okay. At the end of the book, you state some interesting common traits shared by tiny business operators that make the big money. Some of the traits included, it took businesses an average of almost 4 years to grow to get $1 million in annual revenue. all of them use contractors in their businesses, and 88% exercise in some way. What was a common trait amongst these entrepreneurs that surprised you the most?
Yeah, well, the exercising did, because I didn't necessarily see that as connected to entrepreneurship. But then when I thought about it, when you run a very small business, you really can't afford to get sick or even really be unhealthy, because it takes so much stamina to keep it going. I mean, we all have passion for our businesses, but at the same time, if you're feeling sick or, just not mentally great, then it's hard to run it. So I think that's probably where the exercise comes in. I love yoga, so I was really happy that yoga came in first as their top exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, for us, trying to balance our jobs, baby, all the ventures, the podcasts that we do, it definitely, health is really wealth. And to be honest, we've found over the years that the more that you align your daily schedule with trying to have embedded exercise, either in the beginning or at some pivotal moment in the day, it really helps you have the energy and the clarity to be able to move forward. So that made sense to us when we read that. And so then moving forward, I would say, what we found in chapter 3, you said the following: to find the right business for you, it helps to look for opportunities where, 1, you're generally interested in what the business does, 2, there's significant market demand, and then 3, you can run the business with very low overhead, very high profits, or high enough sales volume to make money, even if profits are on the lower end. So we wanted to know, how do you account for people who stumble upon creating a new market space for themselves and there isn't like significant market demand there? Are these businesses more like unicorns, or, then more unicorns than like the run of the mill kind of businesses in their industries? Or how do you, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, a lot of people do see a need that's untapped in the marketplace. I think the ones that become successful usually do small tests before they keep on going and investing their resources in an idea. Sometimes you can be ahead of your time to the point that nobody is going to buy it for 10 years and you still have to pay your electric bill. So that might not be something that you want to work on right now. It doesn't mean you can never work on it. But years ago, I ran the Fortune Small Business Plan competition. And a lot of the businesses, I worked there from 1999 to 2007, and I worked on the contest from like maybe 2004 to 2007 or 2003. A lot of the businesses are still around. One of them, Property Solutions, is now a unicorn. They did software for people who are property managers. They saw a need because somebody worked there in that industry. Another one was called U Gallery, and they sold fine art online, which now isn't a big deal, but at the time nobody was doing it. Another one that's in the book is called Municibid, and that one, it helps municipalities sell things like police cars at good prices so they can then fund parades and local activities. And what I found in observing these winners is they put the idea out there, they got into the ring, and they were willing to subject it to the court of public opinion. I think it's valuable to take feedback and then keep on improving upon your idea, or maybe decide to put it on the back burner and try another one, because you really need a fit with what people are willing to buy. They don't necessarily have to need it. They might have to want it, but you need people to be willing to pay money for it, or else it will be a hobby, which is, there's nothing wrong with a hobby. But if you need to make money to pay your bills, that's information that's really valuable for you.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely.
You provide a helpful list of free money resources for entrepreneurs on page 136 of your book. In all of your conversations with the entrepreneurs in your book, how many shared that they were able to take advantage of business grants in their respective businesses?
There weren't too many. One of the entrepreneurs who did, Jessica Ochoa Hendricks, runs a business called Killer Snails that makes educational games for children. And they had a variety of grants because one of the founders was a scientist and so had access to those kind of scientific grants. But grants are something, just from covering small business for a really long time, they were not very common for years. Only since the pandemic have they become common and available to a wider pool of entrepreneurs. I think it's a great trend because people used to always write to me and ask me, can you research grants and money I don't have to pay back? And I really couldn't find any other than the small business innovation and research grants, things that the government ran, the types of things that Jessica tapped into. But now there are things, for Black women entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who are still in college, or, there's been a variety of different programs. And I think it's great because if you don't have to pay it back, then you're really able to just take off and run with the idea without the burden of debt or having to go raise capital.
Exactly. Yeah, we're really big supporters of organizations that do that. Like KJ, our son's godmother, Marcia Guerrier, she runs her Sweet Spot, and I work with her in that business as well. And she has a micro grant that she gives out every month for $500 a month. Plus, she has this big one, 5,000 grant that she's giving out this year as well to an entrepreneur, and a New York female based entrepreneur. So yeah, that type of infusion in a business is it could practically be magical for folks, right? Because a lot of times, especially if it's like your side hustle, it's hard. It's hard to try to, get some, because sometimes you need extra funding to be able to really move forward with things. But with that, we wanted to know, currently, you are and for many years, you've been a widely successful author, right? And so if you weren't doing that and you were, had a business doing something else, what would that be? And why would you do that instead?
That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about it. I one idea I've thought about is possibly expanding more into teaching type work, where I'm a ghostwriter and I help a lot of people write books. And I feel like just because of how labor intensive ghostwriting is, it has to be a premium product. I have not found an efficient way to do it other than spending the time to, do all the interviews and spend time with the author and sit down and write it for hours and hours. But I have wanted to democratize that so that other people can tell their stories, and that I can also help people who I can't work with directly just because of the limitations of time. So I've been toying with that idea and trying to figure out what would be the best format for something like that, because there are a lot of courses. But that said, I used to go to a lot of fiction writing workshops, and there is something about a workshop that's magical, sort of the chemistry of the different authors in it. And maybe now is the time, with Zoom being so popular, to do something like that. Yeah,
absolutely. You should totally do it.
I'm not a unicorn type entrepreneur, if that's what you're wondering. I like things small. I always have. I like having time with my children, and I like doing hot yoga every day and going to kickboxing and, just going on walks. I just went on a walk with one of my daughters. And I think that sort of fast-paced, scaling up kind of business is great for a lot of people. It's just not what I aspire to in my own personal life.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the phenomenon of Shark Tank and how many of these tiny business operators strive to get on the show, would you say it is significantly hard or for tiny businesses to get media attention compared to the big players in their industry?
I think it's less hard than it used to be, because there are so many different ways to first get noticed. I mean, there's so many people blogging, so many YouTubers, so many people out there producing content that if you start appearing and showing up, I think other people will notice if you have a really good story, and it's fun to have you in these articles or on the show. It used to be a lot harder because there were so many gatekeepers, and really it was just magazines. I used to work in magazines, and it was really hard. The people would have to spend a lot of money to have PR people pitching you constantly. And even then, maybe you just would not hear them through all the noise of the other people pitching. So I think there's a lot of hope. I mean, to get onto Shark Tank is not easy. I'm sure they vet them very heavily. But some of these entrepreneurs have gotten on Shark Tank. I know Raquel Graham did. She does rock innovation. She's an inventor of things like she has a scarf alternative and the running caps that have headlights on them. Another woman from the first book, started a business called Booby Bars, where she was a NICU nurse, and she created a nutrition bar for lactating moms, and that's in Walmart. She was on Shark Tank about a year ago. So I do think there's a lot of hope for people who want to do that. If you study the show and maybe do some networking into how to do it properly, definitely worth getting your name out there if you think you'd be good on TV. But I think there are other ways that are very behind the scenes for people that are introverts and can never picture that. They can still raise money too.
That makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. And with that, we want to make sure that WokeNFree Nation knows how to support you. So for everyone listening on all of our different platforms, what is one thing that they can do to support you and what you're trying to do as you bring awareness around business ownership and success in the new book?
Well, I'd be honored if they would read it and give me feedback. I really value feedback because it helps me to understand what I should be looking for in my next book or in my next article. I really like to know what people are curious about. And I'd also love to hear their stories. A lot of people write to me through my different websites. There's one under my full name, Elaine Pofeldt, or under tinybusiness.com. They all have a contact box. And I get a lot of good pitches that way. Also on social media, people write to me because it keeps me current on, what are the trends in small business.
Absolutely. So you heard it from Elaine. Not only pick up your copy of the book, but also give her a review. We'll give you our reviews of the book on Amazon. Make sure you do the same, everyone.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It is very valuable as an author to hear, what people are responding to.
Absolutely.
What are your future plans? Do you have like a follow-up coming to this book, or what's in store for you?
I haven't decided yet. I'm still recovering from writing this one. I want to enjoy the summer, and then I have a few irons in the fire, but I'm not ready to announce them yet because I have to really get very clear on what my direction will be. But it will definitely be in this area. I'm very much interested in entrepreneurial creativity and how empowering entrepreneurship is for people. I think it's one of the types of careers where you can truly be yourself and there's no penalty for it. And it seems like the workplace just hasn't really come around to that. And I think that's why we've been seeing the Great Resignation. So I thought, well, maybe I can play a small role in helping people find another alternative. So it'll be somewhere along those lines.
Absolutely. And I guess our last question would be, after all of the interviews and conversations you've had with, all these successful entrepreneurs, not only in this new book of yours, but your first book, I guess, what's the best tip of advice that you would give for someone who's listening, who either wants to start a business or is a micro operator and is looking to scale and get to that next level, whether it's the $1 million mark or beyond?
I would say don't let anyone else decide whether you can do this for you. You decide if you can do it, because there are so many gatekeepers. And now what we've seen is with digital, it's caused some of those gatekeepers to disappear. Think about, for instance, modeling. There used to be so many modeling agents, and I'm sure there still are. But now you have a lot of people going on Instagram who have become influencers. So in effect, they're their own modeling agents, and they've decided what they're going to wear and what beautiful is and what their messaging will be. And I think it's very instructive to see that people can be very successful if they own their future and don't let other people decide what they can and cannot do.
We totally agree with that. It's, that's one of the reasons why we started our own podcast. We just weren't seeing this type of content out there. And instead of, being frustrated if you don't see something or feel like you have a space to enter in an industry, then it's up to you to get up and get started. So absolutely. If you want to start a business, WokeNFree Nation, you're the only reason why it doesn't exist. So you gotta get out, you gotta do your diligence, do your homework, and grind, and don't ever give up on your dreams, yourself, and make it happen. Because the world is filled with amazement and wonder. It's up to us to believe in ourselves and move forward. So with that, Elaine, we could talk to you forever, but we know you have many, many things to do. So we just want to thank you again for coming on here, sharing your book. We were super excited to read it and review it. WokeNFree Nation, make sure you get your copy today. Get several copies. Give it to your family members. Give it to your nieces, your nephews, your godsons, your goddaughters. People need to know what it takes to be able to be successful. And a big part of that is education. And so that's why, Elaine, the work that you do is so important, so that people have that foundation to be able to move forward.
Thank you so much, Natasha and Khalil. I could talk to you all day. This was so much fun, and to be continued at some point in the future.
Absolutely. Anytime, Elaine. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a good night. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
It looks like we are at that time again. It is coming to the end of our 239th episode of WokeNFree. This week we really enjoyed doing an author spotlight with Elaine Pofeldt and learning all about her journey as a writer in the business entrepreneurial space, as well as her new book, Tiny Business, Big Money. So make sure you get a copy of that today, and do not forget to share your thoughts if you do get a copy of the book. She wants to hear your reviews. We want to hear what you think about it. Definitely talk to us. Khalil, now what do the folks need to do?
Come back next week for the new WokeNFree Wednesday episode. Make sure you follow us on social media to follow along in the conversation, and make sure you tune in next week for WokeNFree Wednesday to join the conversation at WokeNFree.com.
If you would like to be a guest on the show like Elaine, then what we ask is that you go to our contact us page at WokeNFree.com. That's WokenFree.com, and then share your story. Share why you think the WokeNFree Nation wants to hear all about what you're doing in business, in your industry, and beyond. And when it comes to social, I said our social media handles earlier. Just hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn. We want to connect with you. Just reach out. And then for sponsorships or collaborations, again, best place to find us is our contact us page at WokenFree.com.
If you didn't already subscribe, please do. Share the episode, and make sure you come back to join the conversation every Wednesday for WokenFree Wednesdays. Remember, WokenFree is more than a podcast. It is a way of life. Until next time.